He started by confessing to all of the Yosemite murders. He said he killed the sund-Carole and Juli Sund and Silvina Pelosso on February 15th.
He never used the Lord's name in vain in his life.
Oh, my goodness.
And he just was one heck of a nice guy. I just can't hardly believe this. But if you ever got to see him, you would like him.
I can remember saying to people, I can't imagine anything worse than the loss of a child. And I was right. I just didn't know how worse that was.
Today on Burden of Proof, the suspect in the Yosemite National Park murders has reportedly confessed to all 4 homicides to a reporter. Will this confession be used against Cary Stayner?
This is Burden of Proof with Roger Cossack and Greta van-Susteren.
Hello, welcome to Burden of Proof. 37-year-old suspect Cary Anthony Stayner allegedly told the FBI he committed 4 murders that took place in Yosemite Park. Stayner reportedly repeated his confession this week to a San Jose television reporter.
Stayner will be back in court next week for the murder of naturalist Joey Armstrong, but he has not yet been charged with the February slayings of Carol Sund, her daughter Juli Sund, and family friend Silvina Pelosso.
Joining us today from San Francisco is KNTV reporter Ted Rowlands, whose jailhouse interview with Stayner has made national headlines this week. And in New York, former federal prosecutor John Rosenberg.
And joining us here in Washington are Robert Youngman, criminal defense attorney Bernard Grimm, and Elizabeth Bratton. And in the back, Will Ammering, Ashley Schiller, and Shay Hitchcock. Now let's go right to John Rosenberg. John, suppose that you had to defend Cary Stayner in this case, prosecute him, and you knew that he had now made, allegedly at least, had made some confessions to perhaps the FBI as well as this reporter. Are you concerned about inconsistent statements? I mean, does this help you by the fact that he is multiple confessing?
Well, multiple confessing with inconsistencies is never helpful. It's helpful to have confessions. From what I've read and what we've learned, it appears that the confessions contain information that may only have been known to someone who participated in the murders. So as a prosecutor, I'm delighted to have those confessions because it's going to certainly make my burden a lot more easy to satisfy. But the more someone talks, the more people he talks to, the more inconsistent the statements, things can begin to unravel. So at this point, if the confessions are pretty solid, I kind of hope he keeps his mouth shut from this point going forward.
All right, well, to determine just how solid these confessions are, let's go to KNTV reporter Ted Rowlands. Ted, start me from the beginning. What is it that, first of all, how did you get the interview?
Well, I just went through the normal channels allowed at the Sacramento County Jail. Went there Sunday night. He was brought in Sunday. We realized he was there Sunday night, so I went there to see how I could get a confession or get an interview out of him, and they instructed me I should come back on Monday morning at 7 o'clock. I did so with some other reporters. At that time, he said he did not want to talk to anybody, but as I was leaving, one of the jailers said, hey, you may want to come back because he says he doesn't want to talk to anyone now, but he may want to talk after his court appearance. So the federal building was just right across the street, so I spent the remainder of the day sort of keeping an eye on both stores. I had to cover his appearance, but I also went back to the jail on numerous times and asked 2 more times, and then after I filed my 5 and 6 o'clock report, I went back and asked 1 more time, and the jailer contacted Cary Stayner, and he agreed to do the interview, and I had a chance to sit down with him for 25 minutes.
Ted, you said that you went to see him after he was in court. By that time, didn't he have an attorney appointed for him?
Well, no, he didn't, because this was an initial appearance in Sacramento, but the case is being moved to Fresno because it happened in Yosemite National Park, which is federally owned. It's a federal jurisdiction. From what I take it, you would probably know better. The law reads you have an initial appearance at the closest courthouse, which in this case was Sacramento, to where he was at the time of of his arrest, but then it has to be moved to the venue which is closest to where the crime was committed, which would be Fresno. So this initial appearance was very quick, just a minute in duration. Stayner didn't say anything, and really nothing was accomplished other than to go through the formalities, and he wasn't appointed any counsel until he gets to Fresno, and then someone there will handle the case. That's what we were led to believe outside the courtroom.
All right, Ted, what did he say was his responsibility in the murder of Joey Ruth Armstrong?
He came out right away and he confessed to all 4 murders. The first.
When you say confess, let me just start me from the very beginning. He walks into the room. I assume you introduce yourself.
Right.
You know, take me through the dialogue.
Right. It's a regular courthouse interview type situation. You've got the glass pane in between us. We're talking over the phones. Right away we exchanged pleasantries. Hello, how you doing? He said, first he gave me one condition before we start the interview. He said he wanted a movie of the week made, and he wanted me to contact producers in Los Angeles, and he wanted a bidding war, and then he also said that he wanted proceeds of that movie of the week to go to the Pelosso and Armstrong families. Then he sat down and he took a deep breath, and he said, I'm guilty. I did kill Carol Sund, Julie Sund, Silvina Pelosso, and Joey Armstrong.
Did he say what he did?
And from there,
I'm sorry, but did he say actually what he did?
Yeah, he went for the next 25 minutes. He described where and how and when he killed each of the individuals, and to some extent the situation leading up to the murders as well. And then he talked about these feelings he's had since he was 7 years old of wanting to kill women. And he basically answered every question I had for him. Sometimes he wouldn't answer the exact question I asked him, but he would answer, and he would go on in a very methodical style for the entire 25 minutes. Even when he was offering apologies to the victims' families, it was in a very controlled manner. He never wavered from that, very clinical in his responses.
Now, Ted, did he indicate to you, let's start first with the 3 women, when did he first see them?
He said that, well, of course, he was a handyman at the Cedar Lodge, and they were staying there. He said he started that story from the time he didn't go into detail as to had he been stalking them or seeing them or planning this. I asked him that, and his only response, I said, well, how did you first see these women and sort of decide you were going to kill them? And he says, at this time, he just kind of stared and said they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. He did tell me that he killed them in their cabin, 2 of them. Carol Sund, the mother, he killed her first by strangulation, he says, and then Silvina Pelosso, the family friend from Argentina, he says he killed her as well by strangulation. And then he took those 2 bodies, he claims, and put them into the trunk of their rental car, then went back and got 15-year-old Julie Sund and drove with her to a place called Vista Point. It's a scenic outlook in a rural area a few hours away. And he said, I asked him at that point, did Julie Sund know that you had killed her mother and her friend? And he said, no, none of the victims knew that the person that was killed before them had been killed. And then at that point, when I was starting to get into the mental, I wanted to see, what Julie Sund was going through. He said none of these victims were tortured or sexually assaulted in any way. Whether or not he was telling the truth, I don't know.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, let's take a break, Ted. When we come back, Cary Stayner allegedly says he committed the triple homicide at Yosemite last February. But could he have committed this crime alone? Stay with us.
With all his talk about changes to Medicare, we were confused.
I'd only read a few things about the new Medicare Plus choice option, but I didn't really understand it or know how it might affect our current coverage.
We needed answers to these very important questions.
So we called this toll-free number and received this valuable guide to health insurance for people with Medicare, absolutely free, from United American Insurance Company.
This free guide could answer a lot of your Medicare supplement questions. I know it did for us.
With United American's Medicare supplement policy, you'll have the freedom to choose the doctors and hospitals you want.
And almost all of your Part B processed claims are filed automatically.
Call United American for your free guide today.
We're sure glad we did.
Yeah.
This informative guide to health insurance for people with Medicare could answer a lot of your Medicare supplement questions. To receive your free Medicare supplement guide plus information on these affordable insurance plans available from United American, call 1-800-742-0451.
Fight osteoporosis with Citracal, the calcium supplement clinically proven to help stop bone loss. Do what's right for your bones. Take Citracal.
People breed dogs. Some people breed pretty dogs. Other people breed tough dogs. But every once in a while, one of those tough dogs hooks up with one of the pretty dogs. Introducing the new, redesigned 2000 Mitsubishi Montero Sport. Tougher, prettier.
Tonight on Larry King Live, millions of people tune into him every morning. Radio talk show host Don Imus will be here for the hour. The I-Man takes your calls. Tonight, 9 Eastern on CNN.
Log on to CNN.com.
More than just breaking news.
It's information you can use.
Planning a trip?
Get there with the lowest fare.
It's easy.
Book your flight, hotel,
and even get driving directions.
Where to eat, shop,
and play. CNN.com.
4-day weather forecasts.
Where you are and where you're going.
Thousands of cities worldwide.
Just choose a destination
and go.
Get it all at CNN.com.
Call from another friend of hers who knew her well. And I was told where the car was found, and I was told where her body had been found. And then without FBI confirmation or anything, I knew it was Joey.
The decapitated body of Joey Ruth Armstrong was found in Yosemite National Park last week. Before her death, her alleged killer had been questioned about a triple homicide in the park. Well, Ted, there is some reason to believe, at least authorities have indicated, that perhaps Stayner was helped by this gang they were investigating, supposedly involved in methamphetamines. What do we know about that? And did he say that he did this alone, or did he have anybody help him?
Yeah, he said emphatically he acted alone. I asked him specifically about a few of the other so-called suspects, people that were already incarcerated that the FBI sort of directed the media towards, and they were not actually called suspects, but the FBI said all of the main players are already in custody, those individuals. And he said all of those people had absolutely nothing to do with this. I acted completely alone.
Ted,
so, yeah.
You told us what happened to, what he told you happened to the sons and their friend. What about to Joey Ruth Armstrong? Did he admit to killing her, and did he give you any motive?
Yeah, he did admit to killing her, and you know, the interesting thing about this is as this investigation progressed, Cary Stayner was questioned right after the 3 homicides, or after the women were missing in near the Cedar Lodge, along with the other employees at the Cedar Lodge. And he said at that time he was a nervous wreck. He said he thought for sure he was going to be questioned again. He was questioned once by agents. He said he was sweating profusely and was convinced that they were onto him. And he said he couldn't eat for a month. He lost considerable weight just waiting for them to come back and interview him again. But when they didn't interview him and they started sort of focusing the blame, it appeared in their investigation, on this gang of methamphetamine drug users and traffickers, Stayner said, I asked him what he thought about that. He said he was dumbfounded by it. And he realized that he had successfully gotten away with those 3 murders. But then he said he was down in an area in Yosemite National Park where he had been many times before. It was a place where he said he found peace and he enjoyed just being there. And he said he happened to run into Joey Armstrong. He said he had never seen her before. I asked if he had followed her to her home, and he said no, because there were some reports that some folks where Joey worked sometimes dined at the Cedar Lodge, but he said he had never seen her and didn't follow her, just ran into her and was speaking to her, talking to her. A lot of people say this is a guy that has the ability to engage in conversation. He's clean-cut, attractive is how he's described. He said he was talking to Joey Armstrong, and when he realized she was home alone, he said he couldn't help himself, and that's when he killed her.
Now, did he kill her? I mean, of course, there are the reports that she was decapitated. Do we know if that was the cause of death, or did he strangle her like he did the other ones, and this was, an act afterwards?
He told me that he said he strangled Carol Sund and Silvina Pelosso, and then he sort of lumped Julie Sund and Joey into the same category, it seemed, although he said he slashed Julie Sund's throat. He just said he decapitated Joey Armstrong, and he was quick to tell me that he did not decapitate Julie Sund. But he did not tell me the exact method in which he decapitated her, whether I assume it was probably a knife.
Ted, he also left some false clues for the FBI. I mean, he was rather crafty about what he did with these 3 women. Didn't he leave some clues that he hoped to throw them off the trail with?
Right. After when he brought Julie Sund down to the rental car, he drove with her to this scenic outlook and killed her. Then he took that rental car with the 2 bodies in the back and drove to another small area, a town called Long Barn. And just outside that town, he got rid of the vehicle. At that time, he went back home. He took a taxi cab and then a bus to get himself back to the Cedar Lodge. But 3 days later, he returned to that vehicle and he burned the evidence. But before he did that, he took Carol Sund's wallet and he drove to a town nearby, the town of Modesto, and just threw it out the window at an intersection there. He said he did that to throw off the FBI, and it seems to, doing that seemed to really throw the investigation off considerably. Stayner's convinced that these methamphetamine, this meth gang somehow was attached to the wallet that he had left, and that's why the investigation sort of shifted to the Modesto area and to this other element of crime. So he was very crafty. He was the one that he claims that he told the FBI where to find Julie Sund's body at the scenic outlook. He says he sent them an anonymous letter. He sent law enforcement an anonymous letter. And then he told me that he said, I disguised my handwriting and I used someone else's DNA to lick the envelope.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk to our defense attorney and our prosecutor to find out what they would do with these statements. Stay with us.
Now you can make every night a nickel a minute. Introducing Sprint Nickel Nights. Now every night till midnight, every call is just a nickel a minute. It's giving America night fever and savings that make every night the right time to talk. Catch night fever for yourself. Call now and get Sprint Nickel Nights. Call 1-877-4-NIGHTS. Switch to Sprint now, and every night you can call all you want at the time that's best for you without having to dial all those extra 1010 numbers. Call 1-877-4-NIGHTS and get Sprint Nickel Nights for night after night of long distance your way. Just 5 cents a minute every night of the week. Catch night fever and make every night your time to call. Switch to Sprint Nickel Nights. Call 1-877-4-NIGHTS now or visit the Sprint store at Radio Shack and catch night fever right now.
I'm watching you, CNN.
Hey, you know what's brown and black and looks good on a lawyer? A Doberman.
I'm here all week.
Finding a lawyer is no joke. Lawyers.com makes it easy to find a lawyer with access to over 420,000 lawyers and firms. Check out our Ask a Lawyer section, even inquire about legal fees. All from the same source lawyers use to find other lawyers. Search and find a lawyer who's right for you with lawyers.com.
You see, a Doberman is a dog.
Got something large you gotta send someplace else? Call Packmail. We ship anything, anywhere.
People are calling us to get rid of credit card bills that they may have accumulated.
College loans,
Medical expenses.
credit card debt.
If you're in debt and have equity in your home, call Upland Mortgage. Upland solves financial problems for hundreds of homeowners every day.
I think the most credit cards that my customer ever had was 12.
20 credit cards or more.
And Upland provides a variety of loan programs for all types of needs, regardless of your credit history. Feeling the pressure of too many bills? If you own a home, get an easy loan from Upland.
It's one payment that's so easy.
People love making one payment each month because it's easier. Combine your monthly bills, credit cards, auto loans, even your mortgage, and save hundreds of dollars every month.
The main thing is getting them an approval.
And we do it quickly, easily, and give you approval the same day.
For fast, friendly service, call an Upland Mortgage financial advisor today at 1-800-UPLAND-1.
It feels great to call people and say you're approved.
Tonight on CNN and Fortune. In a matter of hours, she turned a $10 investment into millions.
This is awesome to me. You never think that this is something that's going to happen to you.
Meet this secretary who turned her daily grind into a pot of gold. Plus, it could be the next Cuban revolution. International big business invading Cuba for big profits.
In Cuba, there is no competition for this type of development.
The new capitalist battlefield. CNN and Fortune. Tonight, 8/7 Central on CNN.
Sunday on CNN Perspectives, Iran is under the worst unrest since the Islamic Revolution of 1979. CNN looks at the man in the center of it all. He's been called the People's President. Perspectives, Sunday at 9, 8 Central on CNN.
I'm Natalie Allen. Next in the news, Cincinnati breaks 90, but the eastern U.S. continues to swelter in the killer heat wave. Dozens of deaths in the past week. This story and much more next when Lou Waters joins me for CNN Today.
Welcome back. We're talking to Ted Rowlands, a reporter who met with Cary Stayner, who has confessed to killing 4 people. Ted, before we go on to our further discussion, can you tell me, when you met with him, what was your objective assessment of him? Whether he's telling the truth, nervous, what was it?
I think he was telling the truth. He was very focused. He was focusing on details, and I got the general impression that he was telling the truth. If he was lying to me about a few of the details, maybe to make himself look less crazy or whatever, but that may have been the case. But I genuinely think that he was telling the truth. And reporting this story since its beginning, this is the only scenario that really makes sense as far as connecting all of the dots or bringing all the pieces into this puzzle. His story makes sense with the physical evidence that is out there.
Bernie Grimm, going to give you the horrible task of defending this man. Now that you've heard the statement that he's made, are there some questions that arise in your mind, perhaps whether or not he's telling the truth?
Some things make sense, and I'm certainly not doubting what Ted's saying, but there's a lot of things that simply don't make sense whatsoever. Number one, Stayner clearly was involved in this or has intimate knowledge of it through someone else. On the other hand, there's some other things that just don't make sense. He's in cases where you have multiple victims during the same event, victims don't sit around and cooperate, especially where there's no weapon of immediate, a fatal weapon like a gun. He's got a knife here. I've had situations victims jump out of windows, victims fight back, claw back, anything to keep your last breath. This doesn't make sense where these people just sat around and cooperated, and then on top of it, a 15-year-old girl leaves with him the next day in a rental car. I mean, just completely bizarre. So he's either involved in protecting somebody or not involved and perhaps insane, or involved and insane.
Ted, did any of the victims put up a fight?
Yes, he said that Joey Armstrong put up a considerable fight and that he left a lot of physical evidence at the scene. He says his hair, possibly his blood, is at the scene. So he says that he knew as soon as he had killed Joey Armstrong that he was going to be caught for all of the murders, or he was going to be caught for her murder. And then when he confessed, he told me he confessed to the FBI to all of those murders. And the one thing is that he took the 15-year-old girl, he says, Julie Sund, it was just a few hours later. It wasn't the next day. It wasn't as if he had, kept her in this cabin for an extended period of time. He killed her about 3 hours later, and it's a 2-hour drive to this Vista Point. So as far as the time, I think he was busy the entire time. And when he was first questioned concerning the Joey Armstrong murder, because he was seen in the area, he had a backpack with him, and he refused to let sheriff deputies look at that backpack, and that was in federal documents filed over the weekend. And I asked him, what was in that backpack? Why didn't you want them to search it? And he said he had a gun, a knife, duct tape, and a Polaroid camera. I asked him if he used the Polaroid camera, and he said right away, he said, no, I took no pictures of any of my victims. But the fact that he had duct tape, maybe he was able to use that to tape the mouth shut, or hold their arms, or that might address of how he was able to corral all three women. And he also commented on, he said they were very cooperative and did everything I asked them to do.
John, would Ted get a subpoena if you were the prosecutor?
Oh, absolutely, because there's no assertion here of some sort of confidential source privilege. I mean, this has now been made public, and he's going to be one of, if there is a trial, and that certainly remains to be seen, then he's one of the principal witnesses to recite in excruciating detail really every aspect of this confession.
Bernie, he also said that he had voices in his ear, Stayner did, that told him what to do, and that he apparently couldn't resist. Is this a defense?
It certainly could be, because one of the first things out of his mouth is sort of similar to the Son of Sam sort of thing, is something indicative of insanity, which essentially boils down to, was the person's conduct the result of a mental disease or a defect, which under our law you can't be held criminally responsible, although you could be committed for the rest of your life.
Ted, in the 10 seconds we have left, did he confess or hint to you that there might be other people he murdered?
I asked him, and he said no, this Carol Sund was the first person he had killed.
All right, that's all the time we have for now. Thanks to our guests, and thank you for watching.
Join us again next time for another edition of Burden of Proof. We'll see you then.
Today on CNN Talkback Live, have Major League Baseball umpires struck